It was the
Really?
craziest couple of weeks of all time. This market is it's interesting to say the least, but a market that has continued to move up and up and up and up, other than the last 2 days, which is, I certainly think, been some form of shock and awe. It's been crazy, and people are beginning to wake up, I think, to what's happening around the globe, and are more concerned about value, keeping their money in dollars, which seems more like a melting ice cube these days than a currency.
Well, it's gone up, what, 66% this year, and then it dropped 6.3%, and people are kind of freaking out. But that's just a slight correction on a massive increase over the year.
Totally, it is, and in many ways, however, it's a very, very, very big move. In fact, it fell by 5.7%, as you said. It's the making it the largest one-day drop in 12 years. It's called this is a 4.5 sigma move, which is just a fancy way of saying that such a large move only happens one out of every 240,000 days in a normal world. It's very unusual to what we
So
saw, no question about it.
you're thinking big players did some kind of move to make this happen. It wasn't organic by all the different little investors. There were some big
Well,
players that did something, right? I mean,
it's like this trader, whoever it was, whichever entity did this. If it were a real trader, they would be fired and shot, and probably not in that order, because there was a massive, and I mean a huge dump of paper metal onto the market in probably the most inopportune, thinly traded market you could ever ask for. It was certainly not done in an effort to maximize return on what they were selling. In fact, it was quite to the contrary. The
huh.
interesting thing about it is that last night, and this is again after New York is closed in very thin trading, the price of gold gets hammered, falls by, I don't know, over $100, and silver got smacked as well. But what was very interesting is shortly thereafter, there was a tremendous amount of buying. Now, who those buyers are, I have no idea. But I can tell you that silver actually went positive, and gold pared back the majority of its losses. Now, you could call that short covering on older commercial bank positions. You could call that, as Jim Sinclair, my old friend, God rest his soul, used to say, MOPE, management of perception economics, at a time when things are crazy around the globe, and Europe is yelling at us for what's happening with our dollar. With again, we're seeing problems with the regional banks, and all of a sudden we're beginning to see stress in the system with the overnight repo market, and all primarily centered around commercial real estate, but also exposure to failing private equity firms that are also closely tied to the banks. There's all of this stress happening, and at the same time, we're getting all sorts of publicity in Reuters and Bloomberg and in all of the mainstream media talking about the allure and the positivity of gold. And I think you have some very large players who don't like that very much, whether they be trying to cover their positions, whether they be trying to accumulate, whatever it is. This was a coordinated drive-by shooting in the most inopportune possible time to maximize return on the sale. This is not how normal markets behave, and nor how anyone with half a brain, even one brain cell, would sell a position that large by dumping it all at once when New York is closed in an effort to maximize the downside effect. But there was someone on the other side waiting to scoop up a large portion of it. Again, the physical buying and the paper market are wrestling, and I think it's very difficult to win this paper game when the physical market is as serious as it is, as to take possession in a falling market.
Well, when the gold is up by 66% for the year, that's just a small correction. So, but to them, it was probably a major dump. I mean, they're going to have to do a succession of dumps like this. And I don't think the appetite in the environment is right where they're going to get this to hold.
Well, they haven't been able to. But again, to To see a market that had moved up where we blew through 2000, never retested it, blew 3000, never retested it, blew through 4000 and still yet haven't retested it, we might to see a pullback of 20%, 30%, even within the context and as you eloquently mentioned, silver up almost 70%, gold up over 60. Yeah, to see a correction is normal. Markets don't go straight up, no matter how bullish. And there are far reaching consequences for gold going so much higher. The fundamentals behind gold's rally are only intensifying. They're not getting any better.
That's right.
But
That's the point.
when you have a market, Sarah, that's been established for years based upon paper promises and very little delivery requests, it's easy to play the game. But when all of a sudden confidence collapses in the promises of delivery and in the future, and redemption requests exceed rolling over the contracts into the future, you have a problem. In other words, people say, give me the metal now. And what we've seen for the better part of almost 3 weeks is something called backwardation. And backwardation is something you rarely see in silver. What it means is a normal market behaves in a condition called contango. Contango means you buy spot, whatever, corn, wheat, oil, gold, silver, whatever commodity, spot is today's price. The futures price, whether it be 1 month, 5 months, 6 months, whatever, a year, always is a higher price because it accounts for the cost of money, interest, storage, the time value of money. So the price is always higher. In very unusual times, like right now, backwardation, and for an extended period of time and very large for the last few weeks, it's narrowing a bit, means that the traders right now say, you know what, I want it now, and I'll pay more now than I will out into the future because I don't trust that I'll get that metal or that corn or that oil out into the future. It's incredibly bullish, actually. It just shows that the physical demand is far greater than the willingness to accept promises on paper out into the future. It's very rare, something we've seen now for about 3 weeks as well.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. What do you think the continued shutdown effect is? I mean, we're going on 23, 24 days now of the government shutdown. How is that impacting?
Well, I think one of the things that we're seeing a lot of talk of, and I wanted to put my glasses on to read something to you here that to me kind of underpins the ramifications of things like a government shutdown, but also how dire things are in this country. Before I do that, right now, for every 10 people in the United States, one of them is a government employee. 5 of them are unemployed, and 4 have productive jobs. That means 4 out of 10 people produce everything, and everyone else just consumes. Now, some of these people are retired, and some of them are too young to work. But the point of it is that we don't have many people pulling the wagon. And when you talk about government jobs, they're not producing anything. They use the taxes that we give them to do things. They're not producing anything. The production is what provides the taxes. With that being said, approximately 1 in 3 Americans received government assistance in 2022. Nearly half of them all being children benefiting from at least one program. More specifically, currently, about 12.5% of the population receives food stamps. Roughly 20% of that population receives or lives with someone who receives benefits from programs like SNAP, which is the food stamp program. 1 in 3 Americans, about 30% of the population, has participated in social safety net programs. And so basically, what I'm getting at is that there's actually about a 30 or 35% odds, and there's actually sites out there that are quoting these odds, that the food stamp program doesn't get funded because of the stalemate between the Democrats and the Republicans, where the Democrats say we're not gonna refund the government unless you provide health care to illegal immigrants. Now, I don't know. I mean, that just seems kind of silly to me, and I don't want this to turn political, but it would seem it would be more relevant to take care of the people in this country than the people who are here illegally, the citizens of this country who, for whatever reason, are less fortunate. But it's a big number. And Gerald Celente is famous for saying, when people lose everything, they lose it. And God forbid you have a, 12% of the country wake up to no food stamps and and an inability to eat. Um, and this partisanship is just, it's got to end. It's just been nonstop now for so many years. It's disgusting. And I don't
Do
know.
you
I
think they
think
would push it that far? We people believe there's many people that believe that they're trying to create a civil war kind of environment.
it
If
sure feels
you
that way.
if you keep people from being able to get food stamps, that would trigger a more serious situation. I mean, that could,
Yeah, a
they keep,
hundred percent. A
huh.
100%, Sarah. And
I don't,
you know,
it's like, wow, another job. If they do that, that would be me dropping my jaw. Like, wow, there's always something they keep doing that I'm like, wow, I can't believe they took it that far. If they did that, it would be a wow for me.
well, it's been closed for a while now, and you wonder how far they will take it. And this is, I'm not sure the exact day, but that drop dead date for the food stamps, it's coming up soon, and you're seeing it if you try to travel. TSA has a great shortage, and there's it's a very big deal. But the bottom line is that we're 30 almost $38 trillion in debt, which excludes all the off balance sheet entitlements, Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, government, military pensions, and at some point we can. I mean, we just continue to raise the debt ceiling like it actually is meaningful. It's embarrassing, is what it truly is. Our fiscal irresponsibility has caught up with us, and at the same time, political partisanship has never been more grotesque and more at odds with one another. So yeah, it feels like you could, when you start to see, ICE agents being shot at for doing their job, for for taking people and bringing them out of this country when they are here illegally. Now, not everyone that is here illegally is a bad person. That's not what I'm
No,
saying.
yeah.
But what I am saying is that there are rules and there are laws. And, at some point, that is what our culture is based upon. That's why we have been the greatest country in the world forever, because we have a system of an equal system of justice. And during the previous administration, there was a perception of two-tier status of justice. We've
Well,
had immigration laws that welcomed everyone if you come and do it the right way. And all of these things that we've talked about, it just seems that half of the government wants to focus on this and half wants to not. And I don't know how it ends, but it's certainly kind of ugly already.